Hello, good afternoon. This is Christian Elsenhuber speaking from Amazon Web Services. I'd like to welcome you to our talk on Innovate Faster with SAP on AWS today. I'll just wait another 1 or 2 minutes for the remaining participants to join, and then we'll kick off with the webinar. In case you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to post them into the chat window. We will try to answer them in a timely manner, either within the webinar or at the end, or we'll follow up afterwards. I see a couple of folks are still joining. Good, excellent. So then we'll start the webinar. So as I said in the beginning, my name is Christian Elsenhuber. I'm a partner solutions architect within Amazon Web Services. I'm working out of our German offices, and I have a focus area on the topic of SAP. The talk today would have been delivered by me and my colleague Thomas Xander, who leads the SAP business in EMEA. Unfortunately, Thomas won't be able to make it, so I'll cover up for his part, but that will not change the content in any way. The topic today, and that's the topic for the next 45 minutes, will be innovation and faster innovation with SAP on the AWS Cloud. As I said, for those of you who joined lately, in case there are any questions, please feel free to post the questions in the chat, and we'll try to answer them in a timely manner. I'll kick off by briefly introducing what's Amazon Web Services, right? So probably most of you who have joined the call today know what Amazon Web Services is already. The very interesting part here in terms of innovation is how do the concepts that you probably all know from Amazon.com as a retailer apply to Amazon Web Services. So one of the major things Amazon.com is probably known of is unprecedented scale, right? So the effect in Amazon Web Services world is, and we'll dive into that a little bit later, is we have a global footprint for the web services, and we relentlessly work on providing them at scale to our millions of customers. The second thing that's relevant and that's applying to Amazon Web Services as well is hyperspeed, right? So one of the things that we achieve in Amazon Web Services is to provide you as a customer with close to infinite IT resources, which is available in minutes, right? Literally, you send an API call, and your infrastructure is provisioned for you. And there is a high degree of automation possible, which in turn enables you to have a high degree of agility on the IT and business layer. Just imagine in Amazon Web Services, you can set up a HANA system, for example, with all the configuration, let's say, guidelines from SAP applied somewhere between 30 to 45 minutes. Another area which is a focus area of Amazon Web Services, and that's obviously also the major part of this talk, is relentless innovation. So if the number of new features and services that we have launched in 2016 was over 1,000, right? So you can imagine close to, let's say, every day you wake up, Amazon Web Services has gone a little bit better, right? Like 3 new features a day, and that number is actually increasing, right? So you see there is a high dedication to innovation there in the whole portfolio of Amazon Web Services. And the last part is customer obsession. So we listen to the customers, we try to get as much as feedback as possible and integrate that into the pipeline. One thing that's very obvious for customers a benefit is that we have decreased the prices over the course of the last 10 years. So Amazon Web Services has been started in 2006, so it's more than 10 years now. 62 times, right? So we decreased the times, and we currently have no intention to stop doing that. From a technology perspective, apart from the different services that AWS can provide to you, one of the major important things is we have a global footprint. So Amazon Web Services is built up of regions. Those are distributed over the globe. We have 16 regions with 5 more announced already to come up within 2017 and 2018. Those regions consist of availability zones. An availability zone is one or more data centers, and they are highly performing connected inter each other. So if you look at the Frankfurt region, for example, we have 3 availability zones there, and this enables you as a customer to put systems in there with a high degree of failure isolation, failover mechanism, disaster recovery approaches in those availability zones because they are isolated from each other. And this global presence is extended by 82, and the number is growing as well, 82 points of presence, which are used as edge locations for our content delivery network and transfer acceleration services that we provide. So how does that fit together with SAP? As I said in the beginning, AWS has been started roughly 2006. We work with SAP, and we have a partnership with SAP since 2008. Right? So you can see that is clearly something that has been there from the beginning. And let's say the partnership has been extending over time, of course. Especially if you look at the later part of this chart, you see that the number of different SAP solutions which are supported to be run on AWS as a platform has increased dramatically. One of the major topics, of course, at the moment is HANA, and we started to provide systems that are certified for use with HANA a couple of years ago, and we extending this footprint, as we see on the next slide, to a very large extent. One thing that you might be aware of that on the SAP Sapphire, which is the large congress SAP runs once a year in the US, SAP announced that the HANA Enterprise Cloud, the so-called HEC, will now offer an additional option to be available to customers on top of AWS infrastructure. The same applies to the SAP Cloud Platform, which is, let's say, a cloud-based application platform from SAP. And the last part you see on the slide is called FAST, which is a rapid migration test program for HANA systems, and we'll cover that in a later point of the talk. Just to add up, this is on the left-hand side, you see sort of the technology portfolio that's there. On the right-hand side, you see a couple of customers that are making use of that portfolio. Just to name some of them, BP on the top left border is probably a company you are all aware of, and they have migrated their lubricants ECC system to AWS, and they are now on the progress of migrating remaining SAP systems within, let's say, the next couple of months. We'll talk about into the details of those a little bit later. Another very interesting customer of us is Kellogg's. They have migrated large-scale HANA systems, their trade promotion solution, to AWS, and they are now in the process of creating a global footprint and a global rollout of that solution. For customers in EMEA, something which is obviously very relevant is for example, the case of Energy, a customer of ours who has started to migrate. They have started to migrate from the Czech Republic. It's a former RWE company, and they migrated their HR system, and they then extended that to also include solutions like ISU, CRM, BW. So a very broad portfolio of different SAP solutions to the cloud. As I said in the beginning, the speed of options you have on AWS for SAP has extended dramatically, especially over the course of the last 2 years, I'd say, in the area of HANA. So we started with the first HANA certified systems in 2015, and you see those system configurations were providing you up to, let's say, 0.5 terabyte of RAM. And the customer said, well, that's good. I can do a lot of testing, and I can look into HANA, and I love it, but I also want to use that for my production systems. And as you probably are aware of, there is a lot of systems out there that are larger than those numbers. So we started to create a dedicated instance type. So an instance is, let's say, what we call it's one of the services in AWS for, let's say, infrastructure. It's like a virtual machine integrated into the platform. And you see in the middle of this chart that we started to roll out a 2 terabyte version, 2 terabyte RAM version of a fully virtualized instance. And that was pretty hard to do, right? So there were not so many technologies out there that were able to fully virtualize 2 terabytes of RAM. And it behaves like any other virtual machine. It's no bare metal offering that you are just buying and you have to commit to. It's the same per hour pay-as-you-go model, as you know from AWS. It's engineered for SAP HANA, so it's really purpose-built. It offers extremely high performance. It's certified through SAP. It's resilient from a perspective, as I said in the beginning. All of the services provide scalability, resilience through multiple availability zones. It's a secure and flexible service where you can actually also scale up systems. So there is actually the possibility to run a system with a 1 terabyte configuration. You stop it, you change the instance type to a larger instance, you start it, and within, let's say, 5 minutes, your HANA systems has twice the RAM, right? So that's something that is that has not been there before. And with that, of course, in the area of BW, there is also the option to use the scale-out configurations, which were certified up to 14 terabytes back then. And in the Sapphire conference this year, we announced 2 more additions to that. First of all, a 4 terabyte instance type, and the larger scale-out possibilities. So now it's possible to do scale-out up to 34 terabytes. With all the benefits available in minutes, you can deploy it globally. You can every AWS region behaves literally the same, and you don't have to do any pre-provisioning. You don't have to do anything. You just go there and you start it, and the system is there. And I'll show you the quick story afterwards, which allows you to set up the HANA software as within, let's say, 30 to 45 minutes. As part of that dedication, we also announced the availability of 2 larger instance types, which will be 8 terabytes and 16 terabytes through the course of this and next year. How does that, just let me check whether there are any questions so far already. No. How does that fit into the overall strategy regarding SAP? Let's start in the bottom. Typically, customers start with re-platforming of existing systems, right? Those might be systems that are running on MS SQL Server, ASE, Oracle, and they primarily start by migrating those systems into the cloud to get used to how the systems behave there, how to integrate that into the operating model, and try to get a glimpse around how those systems behave in the cloud. Then typically they start to play around with the transformation, right? And that's what SAP is pushing hard for the digital core, like trying out systems like S4, doing a migration of those NEDB systems to HANA, playing around with Suite on HANA, S4 HANA, getting into the transformation play. This, of course, extends into the platform features that are there. And there is a whole lot of options what you can do there. You can, of course, use SAP's PaaS offering, SAP, as I said in the beginning, with all its extensions. You can also extend your systems very easily with other AWS services. Very famous, let's say, use cases, of course, are in the area of big data and analytics. So if you look at integration of Redshift, which is our warehousing service, into the data services feature of HANA, and of course many other things like machine learning, spinning up clusters, doing a lot of analytics, coming back with the results, and throwing those clusters away after they have done the calculations. That's all the features that you get by extending the platform. We also work in the SaaS area by integrating the SAP SaaS offerings into the larger platform, and all of that is combined by a complete portfolio of partners that are actually delivering those solutions to the customers, right? So there is a whole area of ISVs, independent software vendors, that provide solutions built on top of AWS or purpose-built for AWS usage. There's a whole lot of systems integrators that help you to migrate those systems either from on-premise to AWS or from NEDB to HANA. That's typically where the partners are relevant for our customers. And the innovation piece, which is obviously the one of the major parts here, what can you do if you have your infrastructure on a hyperscale cloud? How does that foster innovation in the SAP area? So as I said in the beginning, a lot of customers try to migrate, lift and shift their existing systems into the cloud. They often try to create new systems, like greenfield systems, in the cloud, or they are in the process of migration an existing system, and they want to have a look at new features. So a very good example is if you're on the clinch of moving from NEDB or Suite on, either to Suite on HANA, or you want to move to S4 HANA, then if you look at the innovation cycle here, typically you start in the lower left corner where you said, there I have an existing solution, right? And it's probably based on something very traditional. It's based on data centers. I have the network attached to that, storage as service. I have my folks running this. I need to do all the pre-investment. I need to calculate how will my system look in 3 years, and I have to size it accordingly. So now people start to do optimization, right? And they look into that infrastructure and say, how can I optimize that? How can I increase utilization? How can I decrease costs? And they typically do that by trials, right? So they try new systems, they try different configurations, they try new setups, and this is something where you can make use of an on-demand infrastructure, which is completely virtualized, completely automatable, with the whole SAP certification done, right? So you don't have to care about different vendors, what kind of box they want to sell you. You just go there and use the service, right? And you go there, there's actually a very powerful integration also with the so-called SAP Cloud Appliance Library, which is a set of predefined images by SAP to be deployed to cloud vendors, and one of them obviously is Amazon Web Services. And then customers look into S/4HANA and say, well, is this solution, does this fit to my use case? What are the changes that I need to do? And then they typically go, after that trial phase, they go into the implementation phase where they say, okay, now I have to spin up a project system, and the project system might have a limited runtime over the course of a couple of weeks or months. You could also have the system sort of ready, and then you start rolling out that system. You're rolling out the template, you're rolling out the new solution. You need to train your staff. So ideally, you have a sort of a safe environment where you can do the training and the testing. And that's also something where you can make use of such an infrastructure that enables you to set up labs and trainings environments on demand without getting the hassle of, oh, somebody sort of made errors in my test system before me, so it behaves differently, and then you need somebody to work with that. That's all history, right? Everybody gets from a fresh start to play around with. And then obviously you want to get that into the production, right? And then the whole cycle starts again, because you start optimizing again, you start trying new things, you try to connect it with new services, and that's the whole innovation lifecycle around SAP with the hyperscale cloud. And this overall, this enables you to innovate faster, because you can try out things without getting to provision new hardware. You just try it, because eventually most of the customers don't want to try new hardware. They want to try the solution, right? It also helps you to improve the operational reliability. It also helps you to do a better agile adaptation of that operations processes to your business demands, because you can automate so many things. I've seen a lot of customers and partners providing self-service solutions to their businesses, so the business will not longer be required to go to IT and say, I need a system, and then IT says, oh, I need to get that system, but it takes them a couple of weeks to build that. Eventually, the target should be to provide self-service to the businesses and say, oh, you need a system, yeah, then go to the portal and order it. It's going to be provisioned automatically for you. And if you put all of that together, then obviously the result is a lower TCO of your whole IT infrastructure. Apart from that innovation piece and how we work together with SAP, and I talked about on the right-hand side, you see the scalability, which I already mentioned. I also mentioned security. So security is priority 0 within Amazon Web Services, and we have a lot of external auditors that actually look into our processes, our data centers, the physical infrastructure, and the services as well, and they run tests on those, and we have all the, let's say, the typical certifications that you would like to look into. One thing from an European perspective that you might miss here on the slide is that we comply with the EU data regulations. GDPR is available already, so that's something that's very interesting for the customers in EMEA, and specifically for customers, for example, in Germany. The Frankfurt region of Amazon Web Services is testified against the so-called C5 standard of the BSI, which is a German government board for information security. And that's something that we're also investing in a lot of efforts. The upper part of it of this chart, it says trust. There is a couple of tools within AWS that help you utilizing the platform to the best possible. And one of those tools is the so-called Trusted Advisor. The Trusted Advisor is actually a tool that goes through your AWS account, and it will identify opportunities for you to save costs or to increase security or to increase your fault tolerance, right? And that's something where we saved millions of dollars to our customers by basically showing them upfront, hey, there's data volumes that are not being used. There is underutilized machines. There is machines that are not used or not covered, right? So that is something that's very important to our customers as well. And as a last step, we talked about resiliency. What is the benefit of having a fully automated on-demand infrastructure for your SAP systems? Well, you can do things like auto recovery, right? So in AWS, because every instance is a virtual machine, and we have the scale to provide you with a lot of capacity, you just go there and say, well, if the hardware broke, you just restart the instance and it's going to be deployed to another host. You don't have to have any spares lying around, right? So that's something that comes with the platform. You can also create an optimized HA solutions. For example, if you look into HANA, you can set up HANA system replication between two availability zones, and then you can use something like which is called a data preload option. You could have a system much smaller in a secondary availability zone. It's going to replicate all the data from your primary system into that secondary zone, and in case of failure of that first availability zone, then you could simply with the call of an API resize the secondary system to the same size as your primary one, and you're ready to go, right? All the data is already there. And then of course you can do the same setups that you're probably aware of in terms of full HA, where you run two systems in parallel and synchronize those using whatever tools you would like for this. As I said in the innovation part, a lot of customers look into AWS and new SAP solutions for trial reasons, right? And there is a program that we have created together with SAP. We call it FAST. In the SAP world, it's called, I think, SAP Rapid HANA Migration Test Program. Basically, it's a new version of the so-called DMO tool, which has been used for HANA migrations for quite a while. What it enables you is to do, you take your existing system, which is based on probably any DB. It has to have, to be honest, it has to have a certain, it needs to be up to date, right? So that the DMO tool works perfectly. But given that you can extract the data, it's going to be extracted in the new HANA format, which is prepared for the in-memory storage of HANA in a columnar basis in an optimized way. You can transfer that data into Amazon Web Services. Typically, that's done via dedicated lines, so-called direct connect or MPLS connections. Depending on the size, you could also put it on a physical media and ship it to Amazon Web Services, and we load it up there for you. But eventually, the data that you take out of a traditional ECC system is going to be much smaller if you convert it to the HANA format. Then you put it into the cloud. You spin up your system in the cloud, as I said before, using a predefined template or using your own templates. 45 minutes, your system is there. You load the data in there, and then you're ready to go. You can have a look at the system. No more guessing on what's working, what's not working. Where do you need to change something? How will the system behave? It's something that literally gives you a new look into, for example, HANA workloads within 48 hours for approximately, let's say, $1,000 running that system in terms of infrastructure cost, which is huge, right? The second case I talked about earlier was Kellogg's. What they migrated was their trade promotion planning system, right? A system that is used to have a very high number of transactions. And what they came up with, I think they originally started to do that transformation in Asia and now start to roll it out in Europe as well. It's something where they eventually turned out to have significant savings over 5 years compared to their traditional on-premise infrastructure alternatives, right? The one thing that is one thing, right? Cost is one thing, but the real win actually is the increased business agility, right? Because they now can deploy simulations there much faster in a much smaller time frame, and eventually that's a very huge improvement to their business. I talked about BP in the beginning as well. There is a very nice talk of the BP case on the internet. It's on the SAP events page. It was a talk given on the Sapphire 2017 with Ed Alford. He's the VP of Enterprise Systems within BP. And they started to migrate a singular ECC system into AWS, and it turned out that the benefits are so large that they found benefits that they weren't aware of in the beginning. So it's a very nice video. I think it's 20 minutes, so you should probably take the time to watch those folks to listen what they say. And as I said, it's extremely agile, and they need it from the market perspective to be that agile. And now they start to migrate the entire SAP landscape to the cloud within the next 18 months. When I talked about the FAST program, so the option to migrate an on-prem traditional NEDB system to HANA using the DMO tooling provided by SAP, which is optimized for AWS in terms of how this tool works. One thing is, how do I provide the future infrastructure? How do I get my HANA system? So we worked with SAP to create an SAP HANA Quick Start, which is an automated setup. You can go to that link, say deploy that to my AWS account. It's going to work automatically in the background. The only thing that you need to provide is the SAP software. So you put that software, you upload it to a storage bucket, and then point the quick start to that location, and it will automatically take that volume and install HANA there. It's available in let's say 2 variations. One is a single instance setup, and the other one is a clustered setup with multiple HANA instances. It will, as I said in the beginning, it will work with multiple instance types. Typically what you see is, for example, X1, which is in the lower part of the SAP HANA box, which is the 1 or 2 terabyte instances that we provide. And all the, let's say, all the infrastructure around it is already pre-built, right? It's a predefined network. You can also choose to take it into your existing network. The disk volumes will be set up according to the SAP KPIs. There will be a remote desktop access, so it's built secure by design. There will be a bastion instance to jump into the system without you requiring to publicly expose the SAP HANA system. And actually, you can take that quick start and customize it. If you take the quick start as it is, it will run in let's say 30 to 45 minutes and install that HANA system for you, and then you can start working there, uploading your data, whatever you want to do with the database. Maybe you add additional application servers, depending on your use case. But you can also take that quick start script, which is not somehow magically hidden. It's publicly available. You can take it and customize it to your needs. So as I said in the beginning, I've seen a couple of partners and customers that actually use that as a basis to provide automated solutions to their customers and say, well, you want to have a HANA system on demand? Go here and click there, and then it's going to be there in an hour. Overall, if you think of innovation, right, it's a thing that is very much driven by the business, but it should be enabled by IT infrastructure, and the 3 main pillars in SAP related terms for AWS is flexibility. As I said, you can provision a system very fast, you can scale it up, or you can scale it out in a very short amount of time. You have a large ecosystem of partners that know SAP, that know AWS. We work with AWS to get all the solutions certified for you, so you don't have to think about that anymore. And you can either choose to run it 1 hour, or you can run it 10 years. Doesn't matter. at the end you decide for how long you need that system. And if you don't need it anymore, you just throw it away. The second pillar is technical excellence. As I said, we have a large contribution to provide even more dedicated system in the SAP space. We already have 2 terabyte systems, 4 terabyte systems are available as well. 8 and 16 terabyte systems are in the pipeline. And as I said, we built those systems purpose-built for that workload to work perfectly there. You can also get that, as I said in the beginning, through the SAP Cloud Appliance Library, or you can install it on AWS directly. In terms of economics, if you look at the pure numbers, if you take a 2 terabyte instance and you keep it up for about 48 hours, that's less than $1,000 in infrastructure cost. That's also what I said in the latter part of the presentation, a basis for doing such a DMO migration, a fast migration, to check how your system would behave if you migrated it to HANA and check it out. And the very interesting thing from an economics point of view, you have multiple options to purchase EC2 instances or virtual machines in Amazon Web Services. One of them is on demand on an hourly basis, but you can also go in for a 3-year commitment or a 1-year commitment. But if you go for a 3-year commitment, for example, you can achieve significant discounts up to 72% for the 2 terabyte instances, given that 3-year commitment. Where can you find additional information? There's a whole lot of information out there. The 2 probably most important entry points for you will be the subsite, SUB on SAP. It contains a lot of information on, we have a whole lot of SAP on AWS white papers. They cover best practices, implementation and operations. They tell you how to configure the systems. There is a white paper available how to migrate to X1 instances. There are white papers available for HA solutions, how to do backup and recovery, DR scenarios, and which of those traditional versions or options are available in AWS. You can also find the case studies there. So I mentioned a couple of case studies here, Energy, BP. You can find all the details there. We have an SAP on AWS blog where mostly technical resources from our teams blog around how to more effectively use those systems, what you can automate given the platform, right? So it's not about just a single virtual machine, it's about the platform, the integration into the identity and access management features that you have there with very granular controls, who is allowed to do what. It also allows you to run a whole lot of automation in the background, which can be very relevant for systems provisioning, systems backup, regular import-export, right? So there is a whole lot of opportunities there. And you can also find the SAP partners that I've been talking about before that can help you doing fast migrations, that can help you migrating your existing systems to HANA on AWS. So everything is concise there. And if you want to get in direct contact, you can use the link below to contact our SAP specific teams and get information there and help you with your project. So with that, I'm finished with the presentation part. I'm trying to let me look up the chat window where there are any questions. I just get informed that there are many questions, and you will probably will not be able to answer them within the webinar. So what I'll propose that we look through all the questions that you have. We follow up with you and get back with the answers to all of you with your individual questions to hopefully answer all of them to the extent necessary. So with that, I'm actually 4 minutes too early. There is a whole lot of other talks coming up after this one around SAP. There is talks about specific use cases, and I encourage you to go into those and have a look how partners and customers made use of SAP solutions on AWS. And with that, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Have a nice day and see you in another webcast, hopefully.